I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere. Do you think if I had auditioned for Anakin Skywalker, they would have given me the role? Maybe not. Well, you never know. But I don't know if you guys saw earlier in the week on the Nintendo Direct of all places, who would have thunk it? Star Wars, I guess it is Star Wars, announced that they're bringing out the Battlefront Classic Collection. And this is releasing on March 14th on the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, believe it or not, Xbox Series S, X, and PC. It's going to be $35. This is exciting because I'm sure a lot of people who don't have PCs and they weren't gaming, maybe they were too young when the original Battlefront games were out, this is going to give them a chance to play those games, but they've slightly increased the graphics. I mean, it's not a remake or a remaster or anything like that, but it looks like they've increased a lot of the texture resolution, the game that the resolution runs. I think it's going to run at 4K on PS5 and Series S and X, 60 FPS. It looks a lot cleaner, you know, from the trailer anyway. And it's going to have all of the DLC content that was ever released for Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2. That includes the 2 heroes they added, I think, for one of the Xbox versions, which were Ventress and Kit Fisto. It's a whole shebang, and you're going to be able to play 64 players, online matches on all platforms. Pretty cool. Obviously, with it being a new release, then there's going to be a ton of people on all the platforms, so it shouldn't be difficult to find matches. I'm definitely going to be playing it when it comes out, and I'll make a couple videos on it just for old time's sake. But it made me want to play Battlefront 2 again. There is still a lot of people playing this game, even though it hasn't been supported since, what, 2020, I think, right before the pandemic kicked off. But this game still plays pretty great in 2024. Obviously, the game had a terrible start with the whole star cards debacle, but DICE actually committed and they released a ton of updates and balancing. They made some fantastic content additions too. The Clone Wars era stuff in particular was amazing when they added Geonosis. I mean, I've talked about this on the channel many times before, but that map and game mode and everything that you're doing there is pretty incredible. Some of the best Star Wars multiplayer, I think, that you can still play even today. They added the Commandos as well. Pretty sick. But since that point, it's been radio silent on the Battlefront front. We don't know if they're making a Battlefront 3. Even if they were, who is they? EA don't have the license anymore, or the exclusive license anyway, to make Star Wars games. Obviously, they do have some studios making Star Wars games. Respawn, for example. Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor. Apparently, Respawn are making a Star Wars FPS game too. And the latest rumors, I was listening to Level Cap and Matimio's podcast. They said there's a rumor going around that it's going to be based around the Mandalorian, or you're going to be playing as a Mandalorian, and the gameplay is kind of going to be like Doom Eternal pace, where you have to go quick and use all sorts of different weapons and abilities. It certainly piqued my interest, but it's not a 64-player full-scale warfare Battlefront game, is it? So if someone was making a Battlefront 3, who would it be? I mean, if it was DICE, I think that's unlikely because they're just all in on Battlefield now in the next game, which is supposedly coming out in 2025. So they're going to be pretty tied up with that. So I don't think it would come from DICE, but who would it come from? Do you have any ideas or thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below, because as far as I know, and I remember reading online somewhere, if a developer team has got an idea, they can just pitch it to Disney and pitch it to Star Wars and go, hey, we want to make this game. What do you think? I don't know how true that is, but I seem to recall reading an article about that. So I wouldn't be surprised if many big publishers have gone to Disney and Star Wars and done that. Maybe Activision at some point, maybe Ubisoft. Ubisoft, they're working on Star Wars Outlaws, so Disney and Star Wars have got a relationship there. But what kind of dev studio would have a crack at this and actually make a large-scale Battlefront 3? Because I don't imagine that it would be an easy or cheap product to put together, so you're going to need a lot of developer talent and a lot of money, I reckon, to pull it off. At some point, I think it'll happen. Will it be soon? Nah, I don't think so. But I can't believe that, let's say DICE in the future pitch it and they go ahead with it. They start building a Battlefront 3. I've just got this idea in my head of Star Wars, again, on the Frostbite engine, but they go all in with the destruction and the dynamic events, and it's just beautiful cinematic Star Wars chaos. I think that would be incredible. I know it's subjective and people's opinions are different on what Battlefront is, but me personally, I'd love if I could play a first-person only version of this game where everyone played in first person and there was proper squad play and team play, and it was more like Battlefield with a Star Wars skin. Just my preference, but I think that would be super cool. And you can call in vehicles, call in AT-ATs, AT-STs, call in orbital bombardments from Star Destroyers in the sky. If you've managed to accrue some points by attacking objectives in a conquest-style game mode. And surely, at this point, with the engines and tech that's available, the new consoles, how powerful PCs are, the possibility of a Star Wars Battlefront game that starts on the planet's surface, it rolls on for 20-30 minutes, and then the next part of it is in space, but instead of a loading screen or a cutscene, you actually get in a shuttle or a ship and you fly from the planet's surface into space, having battles along the way, and then you dock in a Venator, a Star Destroyer, a transport ship, hell, even the Death Star seamlessly. And maybe the other way around too. Maybe you're fighting on a ship first and then you drop down onto the planet. The idea, the concept of that is a very powerful and cinematic thought, but I'm not a game dev, so I don't know if that could be done on a large scale with 64 players. I'm sure someone could figure it out. I just don't understand why they haven't yet. It was kind of similar things with the call-ins in that squad mod that we played about a year ago now, I think, the Star Wars mod. And it was epic. Very fun. But of course, it's a mod, so it isn't going to have the same level of polish that a fully funded AAA licensed Star Wars product would have, I suppose. I can't help but feel like there's a lot being left on the table here, right? Battlefront is such a strong franchise name with a legacy, a history. And at the moment, as far as I'm aware, there aren't any massive multiplayer Star Wars games. Is it a Switch or a mobile game coming out called Star Wars Hunters, which is, I think it's a 4v4 game. But in terms of something like this, what you're looking at now, there's not a modern Star Wars product that delivers this that's being updated. Yeah, you can still play Battlefront 2. There's still people playing it. But if you're someone who's been playing it for years already, there's no new content, so you might be bored by now. Surely it's a big opportunity for someone to come along and go, okay, we'll make that game. It's a bit of a no-brainer, in my opinion. And I looked this up before I started recording this video. The first Star Wars Battlefront game that DICE made, which released in 2015, the last thing that EA said about it, which was a few years ago, so it's probably sold more since then, was that game sold 14 million copies, which is a pretty insane number. And this game, Star Wars Battlefront 2, apparently sold 10.5 million, or that's the last thing that they said about it. Since then, it's going to be more. And I think it's available on Game Pass if you get the Ultimate Edition or the EA Pass, whatever it is. So there's going to be a lot more people that have played this game and enjoyed it. So it's not like the games don't sell well. They do. Yeah, 10.5 for Battlefront 2. It's a much smaller number than 14 million for the first Battlefront in 2015. But I think perhaps the controversy at launch around the star cards, the microtransactions, the loot crates, etc. would have put a lot of people off about the state of the game and how they felt about it. So maybe that hampered it when it launched. But still, big numbers, big opportunity to make something new here, in my opinion. And you've got years and years of Star Wars content that you can put into this game. Prequel, original, sequels, what they're doing with the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Rogue One, Clone Wars, Rebels, the Bad Batch. How awesome would that be to see the Bad Batch in a Battlefront game? And then whatever they're building in the future with the new trilogy, standalone movies. My point is that there's so much content and characters, weapons, gadgets, vehicles, locations to draw from. You could cram into a massive Battlefront game. It doesn't have to just revolve around PvP either. Co-op split screen's always been a big part of Battlefront. I think Helldivers 2 has proved that you don't necessarily need PvP in a modern shooter game for people to enjoy it if it's got a addictive and satisfying gameplay loop. So they could throw in some cool co-op stuff here too, and I'm sure many people would want to play that. Wrapping up, I guess I'm just surprised that we haven't heard about a Battlefront 3 or a Battlefront 3 style game coming up, because surely it just makes sense. Anyway, that's my little soapbox for the evening. Somebody make it happen, please. Perhaps if they sell a load of copies of this new Battlefront Classic Collection, that might raise some eyebrows and kick things into gear, get it started. As I mentioned, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If they did a new Battlefront game, who would you want to see make it, and what type of game would you want it to be? Maybe they keep things the same. Maybe they take things in a different direction. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But that's all, folks. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.